Welcome, age of vintage society. The audience is thrilled to watch her balance on a foot, the second leg rising to 180 degrees as she bends her back concave-wise before resting the head to correspond with her chest, even as the arms extend all out in full length. There's no better way to explain Anne Reinking's sensational Broadway dance performance. This legendary dance star is celebrated as one of the best promoters of Bob Fosse's choreography. How Anne Reinking spiced up the Broadway with sexiness. I hope you know, my viewers, how much I appreciate you. Thank you for your generous comments and for the Patreons. This channel would not have been possible without you. Big thanks to those who watched the video right to the end. Subscribe if you're new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Anne Reinking, the leggy, lively dancer and former partner of dance prodigy Bob Fosse, were always talking about his choreography. Everyone agrees that she is the last version of this referred choreography and a true representation of the dance concept. Anne Reinking got a perfect career breakthrough in the latter part of the 1970s when she played the key role of Roxy Hart in the production of Bob Fosse's Chicago. She was said to have inherited the characterization invented by the famous Gwen Verdon, but more interestingly became a part and parcel of the director's romance life and a powerful collaborator. Anne worked vigorously to keep this creative idea aflame all through her industrious career, hence everyone agreed to the fact that nobody performed the act better than Anne Reinking, the true muse of the choreographer. Describing her swinging, ardent fans say they enjoyed the way her limbs operated exceptionally as she swaggered her substance in a cakewalk with a toss of her hands in a muscular disdain. Her elongated leg is indeed a perfect creation that is yet to be matched. The foot motion, the degree of suspension in mid-air, and the curved-in plus a corresponding head and chest level forming an H appearance that this Broadway showgirl is famous for is interestingly done in a swift move and recurrently created as the dance progresses. Fondly cherished for those smart and sassy moves, Anne did not just dance, she also talked expressively about Fosse, who she perfectly understood his imaginative impulses. Her kind of choreography was more than a dance move. Fans saw a devotion that was more of a religion than just exciting the cheering audience. A performance that gave her well-deserved recognition as she won the Tony Award for Best Choreography for the 1996 renewal of Chicago. At some point this unique lady was also crowned as Best Theatre Choreographer for the Olivier Award. As part of the 1926 drama, Chicago was initially embellished in 1975 with little or just average popularity. The general conclusion then was that the time for such is not yet ripe. Those who were overly disappointed heavily criticized it for being overly dark and cynical. In their thinking it touched too raw a nerve amidst the Watergate scandal at the time. While the 1926 plot was seen as shocking, the latter was discarded for being satirically pessimistic, but it is presently more like a feature. The thematic concept of the Chicago show itself is about Roxy Hart, presented as a nightclub dancer who had a dream of being famous in vaudeville. She kills her romantic partner, and amidst the anxiety, she made her husband's contract Chicago's smartest attorney, who turns her misdeed into a media sensation and has his client set free. Critics think that the show may have gathered momentum in terms of popularity, ironically because of its ugly rating in the past. At some point, Chicago was formally acknowledged as the longest-running American musical on Broadway, following its 7,486th concert at the Ambassador Theatre that it has been staged since 2003. When Anne choreographed Chicago that wonderful year, a critic wrote about her saying, "The spirit of Fosse's genius never leaves the stage." If you have ever watched any Broadway shows starring Anne Reinking, or hear someone talk about the name, you don't need to be confused about who she is, because that is her real name. She was born in Seattle on the 10th of November 1949. Anne is one of the finest American dancers, a choreographer with appreciable singing talent. Her effort was majorly felt in Broadway musical theatre productions. Her mother Frances was a homemaker, while her father, Walter Floyd Reinking, was a hydraulic engineer. It was not clear what inspired Anne to take up her career part, but she grew up in Bellevue, believing that she could make a living with her talent. She was said to have had ballet lessons as a child alongside other Ballet Russ's dancers, then in Seattle. When she was 12, Anne made her debut stage performance in Giselle with the English Royal Ballet. Even as a teenager, still doing her middle and high school assignments, Anne had time to attend San Francisco ballet classes during summers, having been placed on a Ford Foundation scholarship to study with the school at the time. Finishing from Bellevue High School, she attended Joffrey Ballet Comprehensive Lectures at the Pacific Lutheran University in Washington before moving to New York City. Joffrey may have advised her to look for a career advancement by joining a Broadway production. As a young adult, just in her 18 years of age, with a lot of vibrant energy and such a distinctive hoarse singing voice, plus intense beauty, Anne was set for exploitation. She began by dancing with corps de ballet at the Radio City Music Hall and showing as a member of the second national tour of Fiddler on the Roof. A year later, Anne appeared on Broadway in musical shows like Cabaret. She did chorus lines in Coco, Pippin, and took a starring performance in Dancin'. She first encountered Fosse, who was the show's director and choreographer during Pippin's production, as she got the director smitten. One thing led to another, and the two soon discovered that they were into each other professionally and otherwise. Soon Fosse took full responsibility as they became a twosome in a remarkable romantic relationship. Even though he was married but already separated from his wife, Gwen Verdon, another talented lady, Anne became the fresh Muse, taking a wonderful position as both devotee and a partner. Then their journey together started gradually, as she was being used as a replacement for other notable dancers. But before then, Anne made a remarkable outing that got her first award nomination, her role as Maggie in 1974's Over Here. She continued her impressive run, winning another nomination for being Joan of Arc in Good Time Charlie. At this time she was already a favoured one in the eyes of the director and lover, as she subsequently took the place of Donna McKechnie in A Chorus Line of 1976, and similarly replaced Verdon in the first adaptation of Chicago, where she starred as Roxy Hart. With these historic takeovers, critics described Reinking as one with the classiest ever Broadway takeover replacement, but for Verdon she became both a career and romantic rival. After appearing in his 1978 review, Reinking naturally and expectedly halted the romantic angle of her relationship with Fosse. Technically, the creative partnership did continue, as Reinking, who openly acknowledged Fosse as the main influence to her choreography work, had stated. In an interview before her demise, Anne spoke of Fosse as one so loved by people, a people she describes as very intelligent people who remained grateful to him for their entire lives. She added that regardless of his position, he had tremendous loyalty from everyone. Reinking hinted that she is still vociferous about her respect for him. I know he has a reputation for abusiveness, but he's not, she said, hinting that it bothers her that people tend to dint his image by depicting him as such. She thought he lived a life that made him feel that everything he did was more like a step. Even if it's on sand, it's always footprints in the sand, which can be washed away easily, but what matters to him is that he took the right step. Reinking was said to have maintained her growing reputation on Broadway productions and kept partnering effectively with Fosse. She equally replaced Debbie Allen in a revival of Sweet Charity, even as she took a brief time off in 1991 to have her son. So she took part in the nationwide tour of Bye Bye Birdie, where she co-starred with Tommy Tune. In what appeared to be her second coming, she was given the role again as Roxy Hart on Broadway. Before then she was said to have retired from performing in 1996, when she was approached to choreograph a 4-days-only gig dramatisation of Chicago for City Centre's yearly encore cycle. Anne took the role when producers could not get a better character to perform the show, as was reported. a decision that she was given just a day to decide if she would take the offer or not, and her answer was yes. The creation thereafter became a hit, starring also Bebe Neuwirth as Velma Kelly and Joel Grey as Roxy's spouse Amos Hart. The show finally made its way to Broadway for the now famous Chicago 1996 revival. It won several Tony Awards plus Reinking's own recognition for choreography, and thereafter became the second longest running show on Broadway, behind The Phantom of the Opera, which is the longest running revival of all time. A lot of people made Anne Reinking their idol. No wonder all were shocked when the news of her death hit them. Jim Borstelman talked about his audition with Anne for Chicago. It was held at Long Beach Civic Light Opera sometime in 1992. The audition, he said, was prior to the Encore show at New York City Center. He recalled how he took a flight to California and was so thrilled to do the audition with her. Funnily, he stated that he was patiently but anxiously waiting for Anne at the time when a fellow walked up to him, complimenting him about his good job in Jerome Robbins' Broadway. But he only just allowed him in briefly saying, "Thank you, I can't talk. Anne Reinking is coming here. I have to prepare." He completely discharged him and continued waiting, and eventually she came in and he went with her for the audition, but before then he had felt worn out not only in finally meeting her, but meeting her with someone he described as her admirer. The man did not come for auditioning, so he sat behind the table because he was part of the artistic team, but before he could ask a question, it turned out that he already ignored the director of the musical, Rob Marshall, something he would never do if he had known who he was. The interesting thing was that everything went according to plan, and Jim succeeded in getting the gig in California. So when Chicago appeared on Broadway after Encore, Jim had the opportunity to dance Roxy opposite his idol 8 times a week. Bob Fosse had to direct the show on Broadway, but it was said that Anne had brought forward the idea that the dance technique should be a modernized version of Fosse's style. After Anne completed her performance, she was reported to have felt proud that it was yet another credit to her name, but had given much appreciation to Bob, describing him as a gift to a beloved friend and colleague, noting also that her choreographic style was more balletic, quirky, compared to that of her tutors. With all that Anne and Fosse have been through career-wise, it's not surprising that she actually sees him as a mentor. Even some described the famous revival as a heartfelt homage to Fosse, as it made fans remember how elegant, sexy and thrilling this brand of choreography used to be. On the kind of life Fosse, whose demise from a heart attack occurred in 1987, lived, Anne said, "He lived to wake people up, to make them live," insinuating how he gave life to each stage of her career. In one of her famous interviews, Anne stated that, "For better or worse, we have a tendency to glamorize corruption in America, to make a superstar out of the most disreputable people. That's what Chicago does." On his side, Fosse also spoke about how his collaboration with Reinking progressed over the years. At some point he became thrilled with the idea of using her again as Roxy. He thought that the audience would be as fascinated as he when they come across the legendary tagline, "Fosse's ultimate dancer reinterpreting her mentor's steps." There were also initial worries about the performance because Anne took her first performance at the age of 26, while she turned 46 already at the time, so obviously there was some form of fear that she might physically hurt herself in the process. But even Verdon, Fosse's ex-wife of 16 years, who was the initial Roxy, was reported to have said, "It's perfect. She has been through the mill. That's what that role is about." Recall that Fosse and Verdon were estranged in 1971, about 24 months after Fosse and Reinking commenced their romantic-cum-professional partnership. Responding to this years later, Verdon said, "Annie taking over had extraordinary symmetry." Anne Reinking was married 4 times. Her earliest marriage in 1972 to Broadway actor Larry Small ended a few months after. Then she married Herbert Allen Jr., who was an investment banker. When that union ended, it was an entrepreneur, James Stewart, with whom she gave birth to his son Christopher, which happened to be her only child. But that too was over in 1991. Reinking would later marry sports writer Peter Talbot and became stepmother to his 4 offspring. When her son was diagnosed with Marfan syndrome, Reinking switched into action and was said to have fully assisted the Marfan Foundation, which was focused on raising awareness of the illness. This also led her to do a 2009 documentary that she called In My Hands, a story of Marfan syndrome. Reinking retired from active service and lived in Paradise Valley, Arizona, even though she did not agree that she was dropped the baton when asked, "No, a dancer choreographer like I do not retire." She explained that she had just completed 2-story ballets with Melissa Thodos and her company Thodos Dance Chicago, amongst other activities. Then she was 64 years old. She was reported to have died while asleep in a lodge in Seattle on the 12th of December 2020 when she turned 71. Her unexplained death was said to have occurred while she was on a visit to her relatives in the neighborhood. Thereafter, Darla King, a sister-in-law, told the press that the world and our family have lost a vibrant, amazing talent and beautiful soul. People who work together for a long time often fall in love, but sometimes things can be different. Why Eva Marie Saint felt uncomfortable from Marlon Brando. Watch this video.